Welcome everybody to IMAGI-NATION TV, and that was my daughter screaming upstairs if you did hear that over the top. This week we've been kicking around the idea of knowing yourself, so we're really pumped to gather with an interesting group of designers today, and our partner school for today is Naruma High School. So we have Bridget with us, who's going to be our co-host for today. Bridget, how are you?
I'm great, how are you?
Awesome. What do you want to learn from today?
Honestly, just about the people and just have fun and talk.
Sounds like a good plan. All right, well, during the course of the show, throw in some comments along the way as we're moving through it. Gemma, how are you in the live student audience? Gemma Laurie, are you going good? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, and good to have Jack and Tamsin in the live audience as well. We're going to kick into an initiative we've been running for the last 8 weeks to try and help people out paying some rent. Damalelo, tell us a little bit about your story and why you've registered to be a hoodie connector and what this opportunity might do for you.
Good day, everyone. My name is Ndileka Mandela. I'm from South Africa, and then I'm doing my first year masters in data science. And then the reason why I signed up for the hoodie connector is that of the reasons that were given on the hoodie connector. The first one being that $30 is being given to the will be given to the fund for the AIM mentoring program to continue or to keep on going. And then the other reason is that it's going to help me pay rent. And then in order for me not to worry about paying rent and only worrying about my studies. Yeah.
Damalelo, tell us a little bit about the business that you've started and what you've been working on.
Oh yeah, I've started, it was last year, I started a data science consulting company wherein I help people, if you have anything related to data, if you want me to capture your data, you want me to analyze, you want me to do some modeling for you, and then that is what I do. And then like ever since I started, the business was running smoothly, but ever since the coronavirus started, yeah, things are running pretty much bad. And then I cannot even maybe have some income in order for me to can pay my bills. Yeah.
Well, let's see what we can do to help out, and hopefully, everybody that buys one of the hoodies that pays rent, we share the proceeds across all our registered hoodie connectors, of which you were one of them, and working with people in Australia and South Africa and people around the world on this project. So hopefully we can help out a little bit, and then our team will reach out and see if there's anything we might be able to, any work we can get you to do with us around data science, and see if we can build some work together, and we'll pass the word on to people that we know. So hang in there and keep hustling and keep working out how to imagine new realities. Thanks for joining us today.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Okay, we're moving into one of the toughest gigs in the planet, which is working out how to govern. We're lucky to have Tanya Plibersek with us here today. Tanya, what does imagination mean to you? Can you tell us in a snapshot a bit about your story, what you do, and what imagination means to you?
Well, imagination is really important, Jack, because I think part of the work of politics is to think about what sort of country you'd like to live in and what sort of world you'd like to live in. You have to be pretty aware of what's going on at the moment. You have to follow the news. You have to know, what the world and the country are like right now. But without a vision for how things can be better, I don't know how you'd keep going. And through this coronavirus crisis, I think we've learned a lot about ourselves, but it's also given us the opportunity to think about, well, what comes next? Because Australians have done a whole lot of things that we previously thought were impossible. Like we've housed rough sleepers in hotels. We've introduced eviction prevention notices. We've got the banks to give mortgage holidays to people. We've done a whole lot of things that seemed impossible. If you'd asked us 6 months ago, can we voluntarily stop Australians going to the beach and the pub because they might get sick? Probably would have been no. But the fact that we've been able to do these things, I think, gives us a really good opportunity to then say, well, what next? If we've managed to achieve all of these things and we can imagine how things can be better after this, then maybe we can work together to achieve that. So I want to imagine a country where we're investing in renewable energy, bringing down pollution, bringing down power prices. I can imagine a country where we're not asking people who are unemployed to live on $40 a day. I can imagine a country where we work together on reconciliation and the next steps of the Statement from the Heart, actually getting a change to make sure we've got an Indigenous voice to Parliament. All of these things that seem difficult require imagination in the first instance, and then, of course, along with imagination comes a lot of hard work, a lot of campaigning and convincing other people that you're on the right track.
Well, we may have jumped into some of the stuff you were going to share with us, but let's kickstart your government guru 5 minutes with us for us to learn everything we need to know about governing in 5 minutes for every kid around the world to understand it all. No challenge too high, and you're all yours.
Well, look. I think the easiest way to imagine it is if you've got rules in your family or rules in your community and you want to see those rules changed, how would you go about changing them? So you'd go about working out whether the rules were fair or not, and then you'd work out an alternative, and then you'd try and convince people in your family or your household or your street to make that change. It's pretty much the same on a national level. And we have rules that govern us all, the laws that govern us all, but it doesn't mean that they're perfect as they are now. We're always looking for ways of improving what we're doing. And so if you're a member of Parliament, you go into Parliament with a vision of the sort of country you'd like to see and what you'd like to achieve during your time there. You work out what the rules are that support or prevent that vision happening, and then you set about convincing people to improve the rules, change the rules, get rid of the rules. That's what legislation is, essentially. And the things that took me into an interest in politics when I was a very young kid, probably younger than most of the people that you've got online today, was I thought it was really unfair that we had girls and boys playgrounds and the girls couldn't play soccer in the boys playgrounds. I couldn't understand the logic of girls and boys lines when we were queuing up. So I got interested in feminism from a very early age. And then because I was listening to the radio, watching the news at night, reading newspapers, other issues started to become very important to me as well. land rights in those days. It was before Mabo and before WIC, before the laws were changed in Australia to provide native title. So I used to go to marches about land rights, and nuclear disarmament was the other one. It's pretty hard for young people to imagine today, but I grew up in a time when we really were worried about a nuclear conflict between the Soviet Union and the United States. And so we were marching for nuclear disarmament in those days too. So getting interested in those issues was really what took me into organised politics.
Awesome. Well, thank you for jumping on and sharing your story of what's brought you where you are, and for being able to build, consistently. I think, as you alluded to at the top, imagination is one thing, but gosh, it's a heck of a lot of hard work. And I remember sitting down with you at some point early on in my 20s and talking about politics and saying, should I go into this place? And you said, well, if you feel okay with having half your friends suddenly dislike you when you come out and say what side you believe in, then yeah, you can go for it. So thank you for being brave.
Jack, sorry, can I say one more thing, Jack? You were younger. You were younger than that. You're actually in high school when we first talked about this, and I admire so much what you've done. But I hope I was never discouraging, because for all its difficulties, getting involved in politics is just so incredibly rewarding. I was the housing minister when we were last in government, and we got to build 21,600 new public housing homes. We started 80 new homelessness services. I was the health minister when we introduced kids dental, meaning that kids could get their teeth seen to for free. I mean, it really is an incomparable privilege to be in a position where you can make some change that makes a real difference in people's lives. And when I met people who had been sleeping rough, who got a home of their own for the first time because of things that we did in government, when I met people who were on a medicine that saved their life because we had funded it through the health department, when I met parents whose kids had never had their teeth seen to before, and for the first time were going to the dentist. I know going to the dentist isn't a treat, but it is quite important. These sorts of changes that you get to make in your life, that's what makes any struggle in political life worthwhile. And all I can say to people who are listening now, who are thinking about getting involved as you have, Jack, in public life, or even going to Parliament as I have, is that it's hard work. You miss your family sometimes because it takes you away from them a lot, but it is so 100% worth it.
There's, I think, a Benjamin Franklin line that in life, he split people into three broad camps, that there were the immovable, the movable, and those who move. And so thank you for being someone who moves and stands up and does things. And thanks for joining us on IMAGI-NATION TV.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, we're going to jump into our panel, and we've got a few people who've been involved in public life in different arenas on the other side of this short video. So looking forward to hanging out with them. We've got a great panel joining us today to talk about design, to talk about imagination, talk about knowing ourselves. And I love that that thread of convincing people, which I'd love to explore to kickstart. Ndileka Mandela, tell us a little bit about your story and what you've been doing with your life.
Thank you so much, Jack, for having me on the show. Basically, as introduction, I always introduce myself as I'm Ndileka Mandela, the first of the first of the first. I'm the first grandchild of Nelson Mandela, from his first wife, Evelyn, and from his first son, Tembekile. Little bit about myself. I'm a girl that grew up in a rural village of the Eastern Cape called Kosimbaba, and was brought up by my grandmother from the age of 2. And pretty much what you see sitting in front of you today is the sum total of how my grandmother brought me up, of having my feet firmly planted on the ground and living my own truth. what I'm doing right now, it stems back from the time that I was looking after my grandfather when he got ill in 2011. You know, a bit of a background about me: I'm an ICU nurse, although I'm no longer bedside training. But I've got the full spectrum of in the nursing field, from being a ICU nurse, a renal nurse, went to community nursing, went to the pathology lab, went to the medical aid. So I've sort of delved in different parts of the medical field, then delved a bit in business. But 2012, you know, at the height of my grandfather being sick, I embarked on an idea that was planted to me by a family friend when he asked me to look after a school that my grandfather had gone to, Clarkbury. And it was then that the idea of the Ndileka Mandela Foundation was born. And it was fully registered in 2014 after my grandfather passed, because I had taken a sabbatical. Being an ICU nurse, I knew that when he got ill 2011, his time on earth was limited. So I just dedicated my time to be by his bedside.
There's a lot,
so,
a lot for us to unpack in there. So we'll come back along the way as we're moving through.
Yes.
I might jump in and check in with a couple of our panelists. So we've got former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull here with us. Malcolm, what have you learned about the act of convincing people along the way? I think Tanya mentioned it. You know, you have an idea or something you believe in. How do you convince people to move with you?
Well, you've just, you know, you've got to treat people with respect. You've got to, you know, you've got to be an advocate. You've got to be persuasive. One of the things you see a lot of people, when they're not able to get an idea across to their audience, will blame the audience, right? An advocate's job is to persuade. So if you have failed to persuade people, it's your failure. And I think treating people with respect, clarity is very important.
Did you have to burrow in on that point, Malcolm? Did you have a moment when you made that realization that if you failed to convince somebody, that was on you? Was that something?
Well, I've always knew that, because I started off. Wasn't my first job, first profession, but I was a lawyer as a young man, and a barrister and advocate. And you might think the judge is wrong or the jury is wrong, but if you don't persuade them, you lose, right? So you've got to and look, it's not. Can I just make this point, because this is a really important one about that. I think will resonate with a lot of the young people. And Tanya was talking about this, about imagination earlier and believing in yourself. You've obviously got to, as an advocate, believe in what you're saying. It is most effective if you do. You've got to speak with conviction. You've got to speak in a way that people understand. You shouldn't ever talk down to people. You've got to try to explain things. Clarity is very important. But also, if you're unsuccessful in an act of advocacy or in anything, in a political campaign, a business venture, that's not something you should be ashamed of. One of the things that holds people back the most is fear of failure. And if you have you want to make sure that your society, your business, in your family, that you don't penalize people or stigmatize people because they've had an idea and it didn't work out. I mean, because you learn much more from things that don't work than you do from things that do.
Ndileka, with your grandfather and grandmother, what was the appetite for failure? Did you get taught to try to fail, or how was that idea cultivated as we looked at progress and the progress that your family was looking to make?
Well, starting with my grandmother, she taught me to embrace, a failure, but to be true to myself. Granddad is the type of person that, like Mr. Turnbull says, that, Granddad sought out people that vehemently disagreed with him because he thought that he could learn a lot from them. So I agree with him that you learn a lot from things that don't work out for you than things that do work out for you, because they have something to teach you. So from both these people, I learned to embrace failure as part of growth.
We've got Anne Miltenburg who's joining us on the panel today as well. Anne, can you tell us a little bit about your story and the journey of failure in that story so far?
I'm originally and over the years became
Just losing the internet on you. And so we'll swing back and see if we can fix that up. Malcolm, have you had a sparring partner who you looked at who had a very, very differing viewpoint, perhaps before politics, that you love being able to try and understand where you might be wrong or right, or explore what even wrong and right is? Have you had people like that?
I'm with Ndileka. You know, you've got to learn from others. I mean, I used to always, and you know, I've written about this in my book, you know, my memoir, which I just recently published. You know, I used to always make sure I found people who were the most knowledgeable and take a lot of notes. You know, one of the problems with prime ministers and presidents is that you get a lot of people want to tell you what you want to hear. And that is, you've got to actually, like Ndileka's grandfather did, you've got to actually work against that and find the people with contrarian views and pick their brains. I mean, you know, you got to work on, you know, unless you're lunatic enough to think that you know everything, which of course nobody does, you've got to basically say, well, the more I can understand about this issue and people's perceptions of it, the better. So there's no point arguing with everyone. You've got to just basically, I suppose, pick their brains. Like, it's just, I mean, it isn't, it's, and you know, the interesting thing is, people are flattered if you ask them to enlighten you. You know, if you go to somebody, particularly if you're a young person, and this is why young people should never be afraid of asking questions, like never be afraid of asking, quote, a dumb question, unquote. You know, the dumber the better, because there's no dumb question, there's only dumb answers. You ask an older person, explain to me, you know, it's flattering because immediately you're saying to that person, oh, great wise one, tell me about this. Find out about it. I mean, it is that you should never be shy about asking questions, whether you are a student, a young person in business, or a prime minister or a president. And so, I think that's absolutely critical. I mean, people, you know, and just because you see, young people particularly are worried that if they ask a question, they will sort of disclose that they don't, you know, they lack knowledge on a subject. So that if, you know, I mean, Ndileka would have experienced this as a nurse, I guess, as a young nurse. You know, you ask the senior nurse or one of the doctors a question, and you know, you're worried that they will say, oh, Ndileka doesn't know about this, or doesn't know, you know how to intubate somebody. But the bottom line is, you're always better off learning from somebody else, and you may have a very good idea how to do a particular procedure, but it's kind of be very interesting to find out how somebody else does it. Maybe they do it better or differently, and you can learn something. So,
well, we've got it's that idea, I think, is critical. The role of mentors and guides. I've found that along the way as well. Every time you reach out to a mentor, someone is thankful to pass on their knowledge. And we'll get some questions coming in from the live audience if you want to throw it on the Zoom chat room, and I can see if we can ask some questions, or anyone on YouTube land. We've got some comments coming through. Steph Beck saying, so important to let kids know that failure is a part of growth. And So one of the things that we do is we have a failure time module that kids embrace to work through those challenges. Marcus Bishop saying Malcolm Turnbull is an advocate for failure time. This is awesome. Nadia saying amazing to have these influential people inspiring leaders of the future. All right, we're going to have some fun now. We've been writing a feature film for the last month. So we created a Google Doc live and we opened it up with the title of Imagine. And so we're going to test some creative problem solving and imaginative ideas with you, Ndileka and Malcolm, and see if we can build a story together that's already been built from a number of different people. So we've got a short clip which we'll share with you, and then we'll jump in and have a bit of fun and see if we can imagine a creation of a story together.
Most of us love the story of the child who is sidelined by life because of the situation they were born into or the color of their skin, and then one day becomes a champion or a success or a hero. This is the kind of story we hope will inspire marginalized kids to dream big and make their dream come true. But what if we did it differently?
How are we gonna do that?
Flipping the script is about not letting the hand you've been dealt stop you from achieving your goals.
Imagine realizing that you can actually flip the script that's been given to you and start writing your own story.
We have to challenge the norm.
So what if we ask the kids we don't usually hear from, the ones who are sidelined by life, to be our storytellers?
The project Imagine gives us all the power to flip the script.
We invite all of you, all humans everywhere, to join us in a live experiment.
The time for talk been over. It's time for some action.
And there is genuinely no limit to what you can achieve.
There is no limit to any imaginative juices.
Use that kind of like just around the corner idea, so you can bring in technology and ideas or social constructs that don't exist and bring them into this world.
Let's write the next chapter of human history collectively.
Imagine the wealth of stories and ideas just waiting to come into the world. Imagine the new horizons, if we flip the script. Welcome to the Imagine Film Project.
Okay, so we've got about 5 minutes to go with our guests, and what we've done over the last 4 weeks is we opened up a Google Doc and we said to people, with the title Imagine, what would this story look like? So we've had filmmakers come on, we've had designers, we've had storytellers, had lots of different people who have brought stories and ideas into being. And so the lay of the land is, so Ndileka and Malcolm, this is what we've got. We've got a 15-year-old youngster named Kim who has got a messy bedroom, and Kim goes to sleep on their bed and a claw comes out, pulls Kim underneath the bed, and Kim ends up in an ocean on a tiny boat. There's 6 islands that Kim then explores, and Kim is gender fluid, so they are exploring their challenge, and they're a bully. So Kim is a bully. So this is a story of trying to explore bullying. Now, we've had some pretty creative things that have been thrown in there. There's an alien dog called Jeff who's sitting alongside Kim on the journey. And they go off and they try and understand bullying and understand themselves and move through this tension. Underneath the ocean is an opera / musical. So when we go down to the ocean, there's lots of music being played. My question for you is, with the title Imagine in a film, what would you love to see in a story? What would you love to see in a story that could be created? It could be something related to Kim's journey, or anything that we can build in, that we can build on the imagination of those that are coming before us. Ndileka, what would you love to see in a feature film story called Imagine?
Well, I would like to see, in terms of this bully, I'd like to see a sort of a monster that will chow up and teach this bully how to interact with other people. Because for me, I believe that at the heart of bullies are a lot of insecurities. And how do you then deal with those insecurities? Because bullies are highly insecure people, and they project those insecurities on other people. So I would like to see a sea monster that will be able to teach this bully how to deal with the insecurities that they have and give them coping skills.
And what would the sea monster look like? What color would it be?
It would be red.
Okay. How do we confront a bully for a learning experience without just breaking them? How do we go to a bully and then create change together? What would that scene look like, you think?
For me, it's I know it's hard to go face to face with the bully right away, and it's oftentimes, if you take a position of being calm, and yes, bullies need you to stand up to them, but not in your face type of stand up, but be able to stand your ground while you work with them in terms of coming to terms with what they're feeling and what their insecurities are.
Love that idea, and that's so much of what I think from a distance it seemed that your grandfather did exceptionally was stand the ground, and over time calmly and work out how to do that with people.
Yes, I mean, if you look at the time when they went for the armed struggle, you know, it was a time at the ANC was at a crossroads because people were being repressed. But he had to stand his ground and say, this is what we'll do. Fast forward that to the time that he then was released from prison, and you take the time when Comrade Chrisani died, when the whole country was ready to take up arms. He was able to say to whichever bully that decided to kill Chrisani that if you wanted to plunge our country into a civil war, it's not going to happen. And he was able to calm the nation to say, you will not take up arms. You will be calm, because this is the prize that we are looking at a peaceful transition. And we were able to achieve that because of him being able to stand up to bullies in whatever sphere of life that he encountered.
Yeah, the complexity of all sides of those challenges is a lot. Malcolm, the film Imagine, what would you love to see in the story?
Well, I think the bully needs to be confronted with with bullying, right? I wouldn't actually use a sea monster. I think the bully needs to see what it's like to be bullied, and it should be from somebody as similar to the bully as possible, because you want the bully to empathize with the people that are being bullied. So they've got to sort of feel what it's like. And I think, much as I love sea monsters or the idea of sea monsters, I think it's not enough like the bullies. I think it should be another person.
Could it be their dad maybe in the past that they see a scene?
No, I think it should be somebody. I think it really should be literally someone as similar to them, another kid, if that's, okay, cool. Maybe a little older because they're a bit bigger. But I also and I think the other so that's one part of it. But the other thing that I think might be an even better way is for somebody to stand up to the bully, someone else to stand up to the bully, and again that should be someone like them, that they can the greater to bring into that empathy, someone who stands up to them and makes them feel impotent and pathetic and ridiculous. Because Ndileka that's describing, in her grandfather's journey and story, that when people are trying to force you to do something, just by standing your ground and not, playing by their rules, is often is very, very powerful. Because you see part of the problem with bullies. And this applies whether you're dealing with kids in the school ground or, kids in, or leaders of countries, is that the bully will regard deference as their due. And so the more you succumb and give in, the more respect you lose and the more submission will be demanded of you. So,
can you explain what deference is their due means, Malcolm?
Well, what I mean is deference is their due. I mean, if I say this in respect to sort of Beijing and Washington, the two imperial capitals in the world. In the imperial capital, they regard deference as their due. So if you go to Beijing or Washington and say, you're fabulous, you're magnificent, you're the best, you're the most brilliant, you are the most powerful, they go, yeah, sure, you're absolutely right, we are. Now, but you didn't say we're the most beautiful too. What about a bit of that as well? I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Pretty Woman, but there's a wonderful shopping scene in that, which is worth seeing. You could find it on YouTube, I'm sure, as a clip. And it is exactly that. It is the sort of sucking up only begets the demand for more sucking up. So that's the critical thing. And so so that's what I would like to see. So how you would do that, whether the bully Kim, the bully, is bullied himself or herself, or whether Kim confronts somebody and tries to bully them, and yet they stand their ground, and Kim realizes how ridiculous and unhelpful. Perhaps you have a situation where Kim tries to bully somebody, is confounded when the person they're bullying doesn't go along with it. And then Kim realizes they need that person's help to, get something, maybe find some water to drink or whatever. And they realize just how stupid and pathetic their bullying has been.
Brilliant. Creative, imaginative. Thank you both for sharing your time and your insights and being so generous with what you've learned along the way. And if not, as importantly, potentially more importantly, for the way that you have both lived your lives and set out to try and improve the lives of many, and all of your service to your respective countries and what you've done with so many people in your lives and what your families have done. So thanks very much, Malcolm, for joining us, and thanks a lot, Ndileka, for being a part of the show with us today. It's been fantastic to have you on board.
Okay, thank you. That's great.
Thanks, team.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
See ya.
All right, and we're going to wrap up today's show with Hope's Design Awards. So Hope's going to drop in and give out some design awards of people that have been working on creating a fairer world. And special thanks to everyone who's been a part of the show today, to Narooma High School, to our live audience in Bridget, Gemma, Tamsin and Jack, to our principal of Narooma High School who had some tech challenges, Fiona Jackson, and then to our wonderful team that were all a part of the show, from Damalelo and Tanya Plibersek, and we had Anne Miltenburg who had some tech challenges but is a brilliant thinker and someone who's worth checking out, Ndileka, and our former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull. Great people coming together to imagine what's possible. Thank you for thinking about what it takes to create a fairer world and bringing mentors into kids' homes every single day. And this week and the next couple of days, we're going to wrap up Imagine the Film Project. So it was great to see a couple of people of significant weight and worth in their life and wisdom contributing to the project today. So lots of respect. Catch you all tomorrow, and we'll see you for another show then.
Hi, I'm Hope and welcome to this week's Design Awards. The Future Award winner this week goes to Nakia Shamsher. Nakia Shamsher is a young entrepreneur and inventor and scientist from India who has been working hard in the education and innovation space since the age of 12. Wow! At 12 years old, she started Bags, Books and Blessings to gather reusable school supplies for 11,000 students from 30 schools who didn't have the equipment they needed. At age 16, she began the Yearn to Learn project to set up science and math laboratories in schools that didn't have the facilities. Nakia is also a scientist herself. Whilst volunteering at a local hospital, she noticed the high number of patients suffering from smoking-related cancers. Understanding that many cancers were preventable, she devised a simple test called Quit Puff. The idea is that people who smoke can self-administer the test to determine how at risk they are and seek early treatment. It's my honour to give you this week Hope's Design Award, Nakia. Congratulations and keep inventing. The Lifetime Achievement Award goes to Shigeru Ban. Shigeru is an award-winning Japanese architect who is famous the world over for his incredible paper tubing designs. Imagine a giant toilet roll holder. Wow! Whilst he is a highly successful and sought-after architect, it is his humanitarian projects that truly set him apart. He uses recycled materials to create temporary structures in natural disaster and humanitarian relief zones. He has created temporary housing, shelter and places of worship all over the world, from Rwanda to Japan to Auckland. His designs are low cost, fast and efficient to set up and contribute minimal waste. If you want to see something pretty special, you should check out the paper cathedral he created in Auckland following the 2011 earthquake. It really is beautiful. He's a leader in his field and an inspiration to many, including me. Shigeru Ban, it is my honour to present to you this week's Hope's Lifetime Achievement Award. That's it from me. Thanks so much for joining us on IMAGI-NATION TV. Keep looking after each other and keep working out how to know yourself. Ask those big questions like my friend Socrates used to ask. Why? See you, everyone.